The Antichrist has another beside him who helps to consolidate his authority, a false prophet. He is described as coming up out of the earth.
Then I saw another beast come up out of the earth. He had 2 horns like those of a lamb, but he spoke with the voice of a dragon. He exercised all the authority of the first beast, and he required all the earth and its people to worship the first beast, whose fatal wound had been healed. He did astounding miracles, even making fire flash down to earth from the sky while everyone was watching. And with all the miracles he was allowed to perform on behalf of the first beast, he deceived all the people who belonged to this world. He ordered the people to make a great statue of the first beast, who was fatally wounded and then came back to life. He was then permitted to give life to the statue so that it could speak. Then the statue of the beast commanded that anyone refusing to worship it must die.
If the Antichrist will be controlled directly by Satan, then I believe that this false prophet will be directly controlled by Abaddon, the destroyer.
Here, the false prophet is described as the beast that comes out of the earth, and we know that Abaddon was the evil spirit who came out of the earth, the bottomless pit. Furthermore, you'll remember that the 2 witnesses are going to be killed by the beast from the bottomless pit, so we know that Abaddon will be prominent and full of authority during this time of Jacob's trouble. That's why I believe the 2 witnesses will actually be killed by the false prophet under Abaddon's control or even possession.
The false prophet generally acts as a right-hand man to the Antichrist. He consolidates the Antichrist's authority, directs people to worship the Antichrist, and he himself operates with all the authority of the Antichrist.
The Bible tells us that he will have the outward appearance of a lamb, in other words, the appearance of Christ, but he will speak with the mouth of the dragon, who is Satan. Appearances will definitely be deceiving. One of his most significant acts will be to make a great statue of the first beast. This idol of the Antichrist is the Abomination of Desolation, or the sacrilegious object that causes desecration that will be set up in the rebuilt temple. He will command everyone to worship it or die. And remember, the establishing of this idol will mark the beginning of the final 42 months of his reign. Jesus said, "The day is coming when you'll see what Daniel the prophet spoke about, the sacrilegious object that causes desecration standing in the holy place. Reader, pay attention. Then those in Judea must flee to the hills. A person out on the deck of a roof must not go down into the house to pack. A person out in the field must not return, even to get a coat. How terrible it will be for pregnant women and for nursing mothers in those days, and pray that your flight will not be in winter or on the Sabbath. For there will be greater anguish than at any time since the world began, and it will never be so great again. In fact, unless that time of calamity is shortened, not a single person will survive, but it will be shortened for the sake of God's chosen ones. Then, if anyone tells you, 'Look, here is the Messiah,' or 'There he is,' don't believe it. For false messiahs and false prophets will rise up and perform great signs and wonders so as to deceive, if possible, even God's chosen ones. See, I have warned you about this ahead of time." Notice how Jesus says that if anyone comes along during this time claiming to be a Messiah or a prophet, not to believe them. This is because it's exactly during this time that the Antichrist will come along claiming to be a Messiah, and it will be during this time that the false prophet establishes the Abomination of Desolation on Temple Mount. Jesus is telling us not to get involved with these 2 people.
The false prophet will be able to back up his claims with miracles, and this will be a strong delusion for many.
He will even be able to make fire flash down to earth from the sky while everyone was watching. In this way, he will mimic Jesus, who was able to command the natural elements when the storm came upon the Sea of Galilee. Remember, Satan is able to perform miracles too. Supernatural signs and wonders are not automatic proof of godliness, and indeed, lying signs and wonders will be on the increase in the years to come. A final interesting point to make about the false prophet from this passage is that he will have the power to give life to the statue so that it could speak.
How will he be able to animate the idolatrous Abomination of Desolation in such a way that it can speak? Again, this will become increasingly clear as we move closer to the time.
Imagine if I told my great-grandmother living in the 19th century that the whole world would be able to simultaneously watch live sporting events happening on another continent through an electronic screen in the living room, or that scientists would be able to clone animals, or that we would be able to send electronic mail from one part of the globe to another in the blink of an eye using a device that can fit in our pocket, or that we can genetically modify plants. Her mind would have been blown at the thought. In a world of horse-drawn carriages, such things would have been inconceivable, beyond her wildest imagination.
In a similar way, although technological advances are starting to give us an idea of how inanimate objects might be given life, I believe that there will be still further quantum leaps forward in the fields of biotechnology and cybernetics. There are things just ahead which are just as inconceivable to us right now as our advancements would seem to our great-grandparents. But those breakthroughs may not be quite as far ahead as we think. Indeed, the rate at which scientific breakthroughs are coming, the rate at which knowledge is increasing, is one of the most significant and striking hallmarks of our era. And this fits with what Daniel was told about the end-time kingdom too.
But you, Daniel, keep this prophecy a secret. Seal up the book until the time of the end, when many will rush here and there, and knowledge will increase. The Greek word for knowledge is science. He is being told that life would become increasingly fast-paced and full of scientific breakthroughs. Certainly this prophecy is coming true in the world today.
The false prophet's ability to animate an idol will mimic God as the creator of life. And although we can't say for certain how he will do that right now, when it happens, it will be simply unmistakable. A giant idol of a global leader which is capable of speech amidst a ruined Israel under a one-world government is going to be front-page news. Again, God hasn't left us without blatantly obvious signs.
What's interesting about Daniel's prophecy of Jacob's trouble is that he is the only one to point to a period after the 1260 days, and it's measured from the moment the Abomination of Desolation is set up. Daniel is told, from the time the daily sacrifice is stopped and the sacrilegious object that causes desecration is set up to be worshipped, there will be 1290 days, and blessed are those who wait and remain until the end of the 1335 days. So the establishing of this idol is an important time marker. We already know that from the moment it is set up, the Antichrist will reign unchallenged for 1260 days. But here, Daniel is told that there will be another 30 days or 1 month of life on earth beyond that reign, and then another month and a half or 45 days beyond that, making 1335 days in total. We'll get to the significance of the final 75 days or 2.5 months later, but for now, the Bible isn't quite finished telling us about the Antichrist, the false prophet, and Jacob's trouble.
Next, it tells us about the economic system that will be in place during this time.